Welcome to the Traitors, a Traitors podcast. My name is David Bloomberg, and I'm the co-host for Season 2 of the Traitors Canada. I've been covering reality TV in print, online, and on podcasts for over 24 years. And the Traitors is where I'm covering Traitors stuff. It features deep dives into every episode of the multi-award-winning hit TV competition show, The Traitors, as well as interviews with contestants from the shows. Today, we're talking about the Traitors Canada Season 2, Episode 2, and you may be wondering where Matthew is. Well, his schedule that prevented him from being here last week got extended, so he unfortunately had to miss this week too. But on the plus side, we have a special guest co-host once again this week, the Sam Smith from the Traitors New Zealand Season 1.
Thank you so much for referring to me as the Sam Smith. That doesn't happen very often. I quite often get introduced as the other Sam Smith or Sam Smith. No, not that one. So thank you so much. It's lovely to be here talking about my beloved Canada season. I loved season 1 of Canada. I loved it. I also watched the season 1 of the Traitors Quebec in French, despite not speaking French, and I loved it as well. So it is wonderful being back in the manor with Corrine.
Yes. So what were you thinking heading into this episode? What were your thoughts on the first one?
I thought episode 1 kicked off with a bang, man. Doing the going straight into Death Row was a cool way to mix up. We've seen Death Row so many times now. It was a cool way to mix that up, and a really interesting take on for all those players being the absolute first thing they do in the show before anything, having to put themselves up to be murdered. What a terrible move to do if you were a player. But man, I just imagine I would never put myself forward for that.
No.
At all. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out and whether there's any further ramifications of that later in the game.
Yeah. All right. Well, I should have done this before asking you about your thoughts, but we need to set up the Traitor game. Where my guest and I will each lie to one another once during the podcast. So hopefully you didn't lie about your thoughts just then. But the lie can be big or small about the Traitors, yourself, or anything else, as long as it is a complete fabrication. However, we are looking for fake facts, not fake opinions. I can't say that I wish... Well, I was going to use another psychic one that I did last time, but I've used that up already. So you know what I'm talking about, what an opinion is. But at the end of the episode, we'll put our traitor hunting skills to the test and see if we can detect the other person's lie. Now, I know, you would never lie, but are you ready to betray me here?
I am born ready for this, David.
Yeah.
The last time I did this show with you, I managed to get you with my lie. So I am looking to complete I don't know is it a bifecta when it's just two things?
So, yeah.
The bifecta. And I've got my pen ready to write down what I think your lie is.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I was a little bit too risky last week. I talked about something. I lied about something that Melissa clearly should have known because she follows me on social media, and she did. She absolutely busted me on that. So
incredible.
I'll try to be a little less obvious this time.
Cool.
We'll see. But in that case, our game begins now. So as we were talking about beforehand, we left off episode 1 as the Traitors wondered which person they should murder from Death Row. And also, just as a reminder for anyone who may not have listened to episode 1, Melissa, who was a traitor on season 1 of the Traitors Canada, talked about how she thinks that they started off with Death Row so that the traitors would only have 5 people to discuss instead of 20 people they just met. And I thought that was really good insight from her.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think about that. That's really clever. Well done, production.
Yes. And of course, you get lots of people saying, "Oh, I think this is the right thing to do," and lots of other people saying, "My God, that's a stupid thing to do." So, lots of sound bites in there. Now, as we begin episode 2, I want to mention that this week I watched the extended version of the show. So, anyone who watched the regular version on TV, if you notice me talking about something you didn't see, yeah, that's why. It's just the version that I happened to get this time. It wasn't available last week. We'll see what happens in, future weeks. So, of course, we begin with breakfast, which is coming after a night that was significantly less stressful than usual for most of the players. Although I say less stressful than usual, it's their first night. They don't know what usual is. So,
I thought it was interesting that someone walked in. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Nita, and she said, "Well, that was the last night that we get to have a good night's sleep." And from even the nights that we were safe when I was in there, my brain was just on fire the
oh,
whole
yeah.
time,
Yeah.
just questioning everything. So I, having been on the show, if I heard someone say that now, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to keep an eye on that person.
Now, the first group walks in and admires their portraits for the first time. Nick keeps an eye on his sister Kira as she walks in, but doesn't gain any insight about whether or not she's a traitor.
I I love the fact that we have a brother sister
Yes.
on the show. I think it is so clever. I think it is even more brilliant the fact that one of them is a traitor. Oh, mwah,
Yes.
gorgeous. This is the kind of stuff that I absolutely love. Also interesting that the brother it sort of harkens back to season 1 of the UK when magician and blonde girl. Oh, I
Yes.
wish I could remember their names. They were really great. Alex and magician, and the brother in this situation has red hair,
Right.
which is brilliant for a low vision person like myself. I'm going to be
Yeah.
keeping track of like the whole time. And also, he kind of looks like David Williams from Little Britain and popular children's author David
Oh,
Williams.
okay.
So keep an eye out for that. See if anyone agrees with me on that. Maybe that's just me and my bad eyesight seeing this guy. So yeah, I'm into Nick.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I have a feeling just because he's a YouTuber that he normally dyes his hair this way. I'm not saying all YouTubers do. I'm just saying it looks like something that would make him stand out more. That it also
Mm,
helps set him apart, like no one would ever think, oh, you two are related because you have the same exact hair color or whatever.
mm,
So, which has happened in the past. Oh, you must be his mom because you have the same color. And she's like, I dye it this color.
yeah.
So anyway, I'm liking that they're bringing the players in large groups rather than a couple at a time because we know we're waiting for the death row people anyway. So just get on
Mm,
with it. No
yeah.
reason to drag it out. We hear a lot from Cedric about his thoughts because, well, he said,
Because that's what he does.
yeah. And Trana says if Cedric were a traitor, he'd be doing a better job,
Mm,
which I think is a common theme for this episode.
mm,
Um, Enoch and Lauren are the first two in from death row. As discussions are going on, Michael brings up out of the blue the question of whether the traitors care about the person who was murdered. While we get confessional commentary from his fellow traitors wondering, why the hell are you saying this?
yeah. This is interesting, man, because a couple of people from this season actually messaged me on Instagram before the show, and just randomly as fans, I think, well, in my mind, and Michael John was one of them. And so I immediately was like, cool, I'm going to keep an eye on this guy. I looked him up. The fact that he's a paranormal enthusiast, I thought, oh man, does this mean that we're not having a psychic on
Yes.
this season?
Yeah.
Which made me very happy thinking about you, my friend.
Yes. Thank you.
And what are your thoughts about a paranormal enthusiast as they compare to a psychic?
I don't know enough. I did not look him up. So I don't know exactly what that means.
Yeah,
I hope he's not the type of paranormal enthusiast who is a scammer,
yeah.
who, basically runs ghost hunts knowing full
Mm.
well there's no such thing as ghosts.
The ooh sound he put on a tape recorder underneath a
Yeah,
bed somewhere.
right.
Yeah.
Um, he certainly has the look. He has
Yeah.
clearly given himself the look of the paranormal enthusiast
Yeah.
to do, but I have not looked up anything more about him
Yeah.
to know really who he is. I thought when I heard the name Michael John, I thought he was someone else, and I looked it up.
Yeah.
No, that's not the same Michael John. Um,
He's named after two of the three kids in Peter Pan.
ah,
That's what
okay.
I thought. But yes, so the thing that he asked me was like how I on the show how I spotted traitors.
Hmm.
And I said I didn't really. I got lucky. And so the fact that the one person that messaged me back when I messaged them, the fact that they are being so bloody obvious and so sort of out there doing crazy things is quite annoying.
He
Quite
was
annoying.
like, he was like, well, if Sam couldn't spot it, then nobody
Yeah.
will, you know? So
Yeah.
obviously I could do anything.
Yeah, should have pointed out the fact to him a bit more that I'm legally blind and it's hard to to see when people are lying to you.
Kevin walks in next, and then Dylan, because obviously the traders weren't going to get rid of the guy who was immediately drawing suspicion.
Kevin Dillon is an actor, right? There's a famous actor called Kevin Dillon. Am I right about
Kevin
that?
Dillon? Oh, there might be. I'm probably
Anyway.
not the best trivia partner when it comes to
Okay,
stuff like that.
okay. We'll move on from that.
Yeah. Um, so Chris is out. I think, if I remember correctly, I predicted Chris would go out and tells us his risk didn't pay off. Yeah, you think? That's
Yeah,
why Melissa and I spent a lot of time saying it was a dumb idea last week.
yeah, yeah. Completely agree.
Um, so Dylan tells us he knew he was safe and him drawing attention was his plan. And I was kind of wondering, I didn't think about it at the time. I was just kind of wondering as I was watching the beginning of this episode, like, was he really so dumb to do what he did? But then he did volunteer for death row, so anything was possible. But
Yeah,
in any case, he is certain Kevin is a traitor, and Kevin is the one who saved him.
yeah. It's interesting. Dylan. We're seeing more and more of Dylan throughout the show.
Mhm.
Oh, just with the natural, because naturally we're just seeing more content in the show. But he seems to be the term Diet Cedric. He's not quite as loud and
Right.
out there as Cedric, but he does seem to be saying a lot of things and being quite out there.
Yes. Yes.
Again, in my mind, as someone who's played the game, makes me feel a bit
Yeah.
uneasy.
Yeah. Yeah. As everyone breaks into groups after breakfast, we hear about how great a job Kira is doing, and people are sure she's a faithful. Meanwhile, Kirkland thinks Rebecca is a traitor. And as he is about to talk to her, Chris comes in and doesn't take the very strong hint that they want to talk privately. The
Oh,
look on your face tells me.
I think he just said Chris came in.
What, did I get the person wrong?
Yes, yeah.
Uh-oh. Who was it?
So Chris has just been murdered, so I can't remember who it was.
Oh, you're right.
This is the
secret
ghost. That's
is.
the paranormal coming
Yeah,
in.
that's right. That's right. Okay. Yes, I wrote the wrong person's name down. There are
Yeah.
too many people who look like this person, I guess. I don't remember now.
Wait, was that your lie? Did I just
No, it
catch you in the
It
lie?
wasn't. That would have been a really bad lie.
Immediately after you've announced it as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So someone comes in, and now I can't remember who. But anyway, this leads to Rebecca bringing up Cedric's name because he talks about her to people that he should know trusts her. Which takes us back to Kira and a couple people saying they know she and Rebecca are close because she basically said so straight out. Another name that's brought up is Mike, who does true crime podcasts. So they wonder. I was just going to say they wonder if he's really as shy as he seems or he's acting.
Yeah. I immediately as I saw Mike, I was like, oh, I'm going to like this guy. This is going to be my guy. And because I think it's because he looks a bit like Ned Flanders. That seems quite good. But then, yeah, throughout this episode, there just seemed to be a bunch of piling onto him for reasons that I just don't see. I
No.
don't see why people, and the same with Rebecca, actually. Just people have started being like, cool, yeah, it's that guy. And it's just this pile on
It's
that we see so
yeah.
often.
I mean, and I hate to use this word because it's really not, but it's almost like bullying. It's like going after the
Yeah,
person who's not going to
yeah,
fight back. The
yeah.
person who is more quieter, not as
Mm,
outspoken, and they're just
mm,
piling on those people.
yeah.
But one of them said, if you're someone who does podcasts, you have to be somewhat confident and not shy. Now, considering that I podcast with a sign that says "David, you're right" on the wall behind me, I guess that there could be something to the confident part, but also the thing about podcasting is you could do it from your own bedroom on your own couch, as I
Yeah,
do,
yeah.
and you never face a live audience. So it can actually be kind of perfect for a shy person.
Can,
Um,
can, can I just point out that your sign, David, you're right, should have a comma after the word David?
yes, it's the back of someone's shirt. It's the back of one of my other podcast partners' shirts. So,
Well, they should have put a comma in there.
well,
Okay.
also the phrase comes from on her season, my other podcast partner's season. There was a man named David, and they did a blindfold challenge, and he was walking around trying to find pieces. And the woman who was yelling to him kept yelling, "David, you're right. David, you're right." She was telling him to go to the right.
In which case you've spelt you're the wrong way.
Exactly. But I adopted this as my phrase and changed the meaning of it and the spelling of your.
Brilliant. And dropping a
So,
comma. Love it.
yes, yes. So but anyway, like I said, you got to have a little confidence to
Yes,
podcast
totally.
apparently. But it can actually be kind of perfect for a shy person because there is no
Mm,
audience. You're speaking to a camera, you're speaking to a computer.
yeah.
And so, if you stay off social media, you never have to hear what people think about you.
Mm,
Um, but in his case here, he hears that his name has come up and gets a bit upset.
mm.
Anyway, now it's time to hop into cars and drive to the mission. Rebecca's name comes up in one group as it said that her demeanor changed after the traitor selection.
No one ever really said how that changed, which I found interesting. They weren't like you were quite quiet beforehand and then now you're
No,
quite noisy, or
it
the opposite. It
changed.
was just it changed.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
everyone arrives, and Kareen shows up on horseback, and then whistles for her minions to wheel in a Trojan horse. I'm sure that Matthew, if he were here, would have something to say about her outfit, especially her top, which is very pointy. But
Oh, another pointy outfit coming later on in this episode as well.
oh,
Oh
okay.
boy.
Maybe it's the same one. I thought it was this one.
No,
I
this
thought
is a
she was
this if you the shoulder one that comes later in
okay.
around the round table is even more pointy than this. But
Okay.
yeah, Kareen has a whoever does her outfits is mad.
Yes. Yes. Um, so as they wheel in the Trojan horse, I'm thinking between this and the tower last week, they put some carpenters to work on this show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, so the mission is that the players will have to wheel the horse around on trails, very bumpy, outdoor trails and they have 20 minutes to answer 10 questions. And she says the answers have been provided by the traders. Notice she says the answers, not the questions, because later some people will be like, this person was smart enough to come up with these questions. No, Corinne didn't say the questions were thought up by the
Mm,
traders. Um,
mm,
if they get it right, each question is worth $1,000 and they get the gold, they put that on. If they get it wrong, they weigh it down with sandbags. And there's a shield inside the horse, but in order to get it, you have to climb into the horse and stay in the horse and get wheeled around. So people are going to be very mad at you. Uh,
mm.
Spoiler alert, no one decides to do that.
Again, as a faithful player,
Mhm.
that's a smart move by not going for that shield.
Well, I think in general, going for a shield can be a good idea, but in front of everyone, where you literally have to climb into something, and they have to lug you around for the whole
Yeah.
rest of the mission, yeah, they're going to be so pissed at you.
And it's just one of you, and it's the first
Right.
shield as well.
Right.
You feel pretty angry at others when they
Yeah.
when they do that. Stay tuned for the rest of my season if you're watching it in the UK right now.
And anyway, they're off and they're dragging and they're dragging. And when they want to turn, they have to lift the front because the wheels don't turn. They get to question one. Which guest wields the most influence over the group? Enoch, Cedric, or Mary Jo? Oh, and there's a twist. To get the question to pop open, you have to stick your hand into a box and you end up handcuffed. And so you're stuck there for the rest of the mission.
So good. That was such a great surprise twist in this mission, and I loved it.
And I think it was a surprise, but it was a surprise to us. I don't know if it was a surprise to Michael, but if it wasn't, it was smart for him to do the first one so that he's out of it. He doesn't have to worry about giving stuff away for the whole rest of the mission.
Exactly. I think I suspect they may have been told by the fact that they don't really none of the other players react to that. Right. They're like, "Oh, you're cool. Oh, you're handcuffed to that. Cool."
Yeah.
Never. Yeah. They don't ever then go like, "Oh, maybe we should let the stronger people keep pulling this heavy thing because we're going to lose people as we go."
Yeah.
They don't mention that at all.
No, they don't. I think it's implied in some of their choices, but not. Yeah, it's never discussed outright. Anyway, the group decides that the answer is Enoch, but they're wrong, so they have to load up sandbags. Question 2. Which guest is the least worthy of trust? Mike, Michael, or Gail? The answer is Mike, and I can't even remember who Gail is. Sorry, Gail.
Gail is the one who later in the episode, Michael is very keen to eliminate. I think she was from The Amazing Race.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. And she seems great. She seems cool. I really like her. Hope she sticks around for a bit.
Yes. Question 3. Which guest tells the most lies? Rebecca, Mary Jo, or Dylan? After some finger pointing and denials, Dylan is the right answer. Question 4. Which guest is the least useful in the hunt for the traitors? Lori, Pac-Man, or Jasmine? Now, to me, it seems awful early to be asking some of these questions like this one.
I completely agree. Like, we don't...
Yeah, there hasn't been a roundtable yet.
Yeah, we don't know the characters properly to be asking these things.
Yeah,
it's hard as an audience to know it, but they've been living in this house for 2 days together, so they will have a fairly good idea of each other. But as an audience, we've only seen 1 hour of them. We don't know, like you've just said, even you've watched both full episodes of this, and you still don't know who Gail is.
Yeah,
and so I think this format is really cool, but should have been later in the episode. Right. The other thing I think is a bit weird with this is that we've had 2 physical missions in a row. With the cannonballs in episode 1, and then pulling a Trojan horse around in episode 2. Man, if these are going to be, we're definitely going to. Man, these guys definitely have more budget than we have on our seasons of the show.
Yeah, and it also means Enoch is going to be there for a long time if they keep making them like this.
I think his name is Enoch. I know that some people say Enoch.
Okay. Well,
because on the show, people call him Enoch. It's spelled Henoc, but lots of people call him Enoch, and I think he refers to himself as Enoch, I think.
Okay, so the H is... I thought that too sometimes, but I couldn't tell if it was him or other people, or I just missed it.
Yeah, they say it both ways on the show, so...
Yeah.
But yeah.
At least I know it's a long E, it's not Enoch, which I thought it was originally. They say Jasmine, but they're wrong. And they only say Jasmine because she hasn't put any names out yet.
Which is a very smart move if you're a faithful on the show.
Yeah. Question 5. Which guest is trying the hardest to fly under the radar? Aaron, Trana, or Kevin? Melinda is getting tired of people just yelling names out. So this time they decide by a show of hands, and they end up with Trana, which is wrong. 6, which guest would gain the most by speaking less? As Pac-Man says, they all know the answer to that one, and it is indeed Cedric. Now, they have 5 minutes left as they head to question 7. Which guest is lying about their true identity? Lori, Nichelle, or Aaron? They go with Lori, the kindergarten teacher, because they've talked about this in the first episode too. Oh, she can't be just a kindergarten teacher, and they
Can I
get it
just,
wrong.
yeah, this is a weird question for this moment. Does that mean that because the producers have put this question together with the three
Mhm.
options, does that mean that one of those three is lying about what they do?
I
And
don't
if
know.
so, isn't that such a massive FU to one of those three players? It's putting them under suspicion through the format of the game rather than through the choices that the players are making in the game. I feel like that's a bit unfair on those
It
people.
it is, but we had the same thing in New Zealand season two, where people kept coming back to Noel, and it's like the psychic crystal ball ghosts of whatever episode, he kept getting screwed over with some of the answers from that one. So I think it just, or at least he felt he did.
That was
Um,
I felt like that was the players bringing his name up though, rather than these three options that are provided by production.
Right. Yeah, but production chose it was the players who were murdered who brought up his name. But production
True.
could have chosen which ones to put on there.
That's a very good point. Yep.
Um
Very. You're David. You're right.
yeah. David, comma, you're with an
You're right.
apostrophe. Right.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Um so for this, the way I saw it was I did not see it as necessarily the traders picked out all three names. They picked out one, and then the
Of the options, yeah.
yeah production put the other two. And
Oh, right. Okay. I was you. I pictured that they were given three names and had to pick out of those three. So, that's a good point.
I mean, it
Yeah, I
could
didn't
be
think about that.
also, but for something like this, it's such a factual. It's not which guest do you think could be lying. It's which guest is lying.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm still
Yeah.
trying to figure out from New Zealand season two, from the question, that said one person was not using their real first name. We never did solve that mystery. I still don't know who that is.
Everyone was using their first name,
Yeah,
their real name. That was a spanner in the works that was meant to get people thinking.
well, it did, and I'm still
Still
thinking
thinking.
about it now. Clearly,
Well, now, David, you can finally rest easy at night and
okay.
finally sleep, knowing that all the
Goodness.
contestants were using their real first names.
Well, see, there you have. Here's a spanner, also. Um,
True.
so, all right, they go with Lori. I said they went with Lori, and they got it wrong. And Lori reminds me of the hairdresser on your season, because the hairdresser, everybody's like, well, we've got these famous people here. We've got the poker player, and we've got the comedian, and we've got
Mm,
the businessman. Certainly, this person who claims just to be a hairdresser is
yeah.
someone else. And it's like, and there's nothing wrong when I say just to, I'm just emulating what they were saying. And it's like,
Mm,
she's a hairdresser. It's fine. She wanted to play a game. Leave her alone.
yeah. She's a very chatty hairdresser. Shout out to Robbie. Love you, Robbie. You're great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same reason. And doesn't this just go to show in this game, you're thinking about it so much that you just question absolutely
Yes.
everything. Everything. Tiny, tiny little things that don't mean anything at all, but just suddenly have great significance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, question 8: which guest is the most determined to win at all costs? Lauren, Dylan, or Netta? And they go with Dylan, and it's wrong. Number 9: which guest will definitely never make it to the finale? Mike, Kirkland, or Dylan? And they go with Mike, but it's wrong. So, Kareen tells them they have 2 minutes left. And I call BS, because
Yeah.
there's no way they
Always.
did questions 7, 8, and 9 in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
There's just no way. Um, so they go for question 10, despite some of them saying they should just, hoof it to the finish line. And Dylan basically tells them to shut up, and they send Mary Jo to, go get the question. The funny part of all this is people being so shocked that they stopped for a question with only 2 minutes left after they just supposedly got 3 questions in 3 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
well, wait, they should be able to do it no problem.
That's very funny.
Um,
Yeah.
but the question is, which guest would make the best traitor? Melinda, Mary Jo, or Gail? They choose Gail and get it right. So they have 30 seconds to get to the finish line. And I'm sitting here, I'm already typing my notes out that say they miraculously make it at the last second. And then they don't.
No, what a twist.
I mean, this Traitors players, yes, it changes
everything.
They fail a mission by a few seconds. This is unheard of in the entire Traitors multiverse. They always make it at the very last second. And I was sure of it when they had that supposed 3 questions in 3 minutes nonsense. What is going on here?
I tell you what, they're rewriting the rules. I love it. And they miss by mere seconds. They also managed to drag this very heavy horse quite a long way in the remaining 10 seconds they have, but they just miss out. It's wonderful. It means that the contestants all need to actually try the missions.
Yes.
And it'll keep us riveted to those missions a bit more through as the season continues.
That's right. Well, they all get in their cars on the way back. There's a lot of discussion of Cedric in Kira's car, and of Cedric, Mike, and Rebecca in another car. Kira says if Cedric is not a traitor, he's the worst faithful she's ever seen. So clearly she hasn't seen the Traitors Australia season 2.
Shots fired. Love it. And completely agree.
Yeah. They get back to the mansion. A few of the guys are pushing the idea of getting rid of Mike because voting Rebecca would cause too many problems with the women. Jasmine is trying to figure out why people are saying Rebecca, and flat out tells Kirkland if they vote her out and she's a faithful, she's coming after him. Turns out his name is in the mouths of several other people because they think he's being too strategic. Melinda even thinks both Kirkland and Rebecca are traitors, and they've been putting on a little play to appear like he's against her, which, okay, I understand the paranoia. That's going a little too far.
That is something that I thought about quite a bit before I went into the show, whether it was worth taking someone aside and being like, hey, should we pretend to be at each other? And that way that'll stop us from being murdered, because they'll keep us in the game because, there's a little bit of suspicion on us. And it's just too dangerous because as soon as one of those sides gets any traction, either you're out or the person that you're up against is out, and they turn out to be a faithful, which then puts the thing back on you. It just sets a ticking time bomb if you do that. It's just dangerous. It needs to happen organically. We had an organic one in our season. Again, no spoilers here, but that kept some people in the game for a long time. And it worked, but that's because it happened organically within the group and wasn't manufactured or too weird. When things are too weird, that's when it draws attention to them. That's when people get ousted before their time.
Yes. Well, meanwhile, traitors Netta and Kira pinky promise they'll stick together, and Kira really wants them to get to the end and win together, while Netta tells us she can see in Kira's eyes that she doesn't trust Netta. Kira says she is letting Michael dig his own grave, and adds to us that she won't throw him under the bus, but if it starts going, she's not going to stop it. Round table time, just like that. Mike opens it up by saying he had one name in mind, Rebecca's, but it's not anymore. There's one person who sows dissent, Cedric. He's either a traitor or the worst faithful. Cedric gets annoyed because he apparently had told Mike his name was going around. He says, you're here to find a traitor, not go based on emotions. And then Kira jumps in and says Cedric has been spreading lies, like saying she was talking about her good friend Rebecca behind her back. Enoch says he heard Cedric bringing his name up, and it comes out that Cedric listed off 8 names. Now
he thinks there are 8 traitors in this game, which again would be an amazing spin on this franchise.
Even if you only think there's 3, but there's 8 that you're suspicious of, you can't go around naming all 8. That's almost enough to vote you out right there, who are going to get pissed off with you.
Yeah.
Cedric asks Enoch if he thinks he's a traitor, and Enoch says he thinks Cedric is distracting. So again, another person who has that opinion of him. This discussion continues with Cedric going back and forth with Rebecca and Kira until eventually it switches to people complaining about the mission because the traitors made them fail and lose $10,000. They seem to have somehow forgotten that the money in question could easily be a traitors at the end. This is not the mole. This is the traitors.
Yeah.
But in any case, they harp on that for a while, and they conclude that they need to look for those who were least helpful because the traitors knew the answers and kept quiet, which of course is funny because earlier during the actual mission, Kira tried to help them, but they ignored her. So she was like, okay.
Yeah, fine. You dig your own graves, friends. Yeah.
With that, it's time to vote. Now, I have never noticed this before. You would know better than I. I always thought they went in a clockwise order.
I noticed this as well. They went anti-clockwise.
Yes, or in the U.S., counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise.
You've never heard that? Yes.
No, I have heard that.
Okay,
but yeah, we say anti-clockwise.
Well, we're not anti. Weird? We're pro. So
you're pro,
count.
but you're against going clockwise, apparently.
I've never noticed it before. I guess it must have been the most, the way to keep us in suspense the longest is the only thing I can think of.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see which way they go around because we always went the same way around. We obviously got told which person was to start, and you could always figure out like, the last person. If you were the last person, okay, cool, I'm probably delivering the final verdict. I got to do it in the very first round table, so I was quite aware of it going on throughout our season.
Okay, I'll ask you for some inside baseball here. They're writing on these little these little slates. Mm-hmm. How does production note? Are there cameras aimed directly at the slates so they can see what you're writing so production knows?
Am I allowed to say this? I'm going to say this. There's actually a brief pause where they come around and you show it to a producer.
That's probably
and so they can go
than having a bunch of cameras.
Than having 21 separate cameras zoomed in on them. But it just means that they can go and they can immediately work on working out what order to then reveal it to. Yeah, give the best reveal of who's going home.
Okay. Oh, that must add to the suspense of the people in the room too. They've got to sit there and wait while production runs through.
Ages. It's it's all. And that room, I say it so many times. There's something so eerie and spooky about that room. The energy that's in the room is so off-putting. It puts you in such a weird state that people do crazy things in there. People lose their mind and become different people, and it's spooky. It's the closest thing to paranormal that I've ever experienced in my life. Yeah.
All right. Well, it is time to vote. Kevin votes Rebecca. Gail votes Mike. Michael votes Rebecca. Kirkland votes Rebecca. Cedric votes Rebecca. Rebecca votes Cedric. Mike votes Michael because he told him at the beginning he 100% wanted to be a traitor, and his answers seem rehearsed. Now, the funny thing to me is Michael responds, with what seems to be a very rehearsed laugh and okay. So
exactly. That's why I'm so angry at him.
Trana votes Mike. Nichelle votes Rebecca. Dylan votes Cedric. Kira votes Cedric. Pac-Man votes Cedric. And I'm starting to think, maybe there's something happening here.
I want Cedric out of there, man. Yeah. He is a distraction.
Yeah.
He's kind of funny. I quite like him as a person, as a character, but getting in the way of the game is
Lauren votes Mike. Jasmine votes Aaron. And why? Why do you vote a rando? A total rando, and says it's because he's been quiet and observant. Well,
you kind of need to bring that up, and you need to bring that up before in the round table. You can't just come up with a name out of the blue that's had
Yeah.
nothing to do with anything. You seem crazy and unengaged with the game, and like you haven't been listening to everyone else. And yeah, oh, it's
And wasn't Jasmine
a
the
bold
one?
move.
Wasn't Jasmine the one in the mission who was said that she wasn't bringing up any names, or was that someone else?
Yes, it was Jasmine.
Okay.
Yeah, so she is
Um,
bringing up a name now, but with with no backstory to it.
well, and the thing is, if you're not bringing up names, yeah, it was. Well, they said that, but they were wrong. That was not the right
Mm.
answer. However, they said it. But so she knows that, and yet she's still doing this, and it's because he's quiet and observant. Well,
Yeah,
that could probably be said about her if she's not bringing up any names. Also,
yeah. We said about half the cast at this stage.
yeah. Melinda votes Rebecca. Mary Jo votes Rebecca. Lori votes Rebecca. Aaron votes Mike. Enoch votes Michael. Nick votes Cedric. Netta votes Rebecca. So Rebecca gets up in tears and, of course, says she was a faithful, and the traitors are laughing. Cut to Kira, who is crying, not laughing.
Yeah, you can cry, laugh. Um,
Yeah.
that was so relatable. That thing of having written someone's name down, saying their name, and just seeing the way they react. You can tell in their eyes, man. It's so awful. You're
Mhm.
like, oh man, I've kicked this lovely person out of this game.
Yeah.
They were having a great time. They were enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying it, and I've ended their run in this, and you just feel so awful and guilty. And then watching them, oh man, I'm having flashbacks right now. Watching them have to go is so sad. So
Well, see,
yeah, I
that's
really
where
feel for those.
it's different from like Survivor, where they go into a special booth to vote.
Yeah.
And there was a guy on this as we're recording this most recent episode of Survivor, where he voted and he said, as his little voting confessional said, "Want to see a magic trick? I'm going to make his, dreams of playing this game disappear."
Oh.
And so he had a much more, jovial attitude about it while saying exactly that.
Yeah.
Um, but then you've got a new show here in the U.S., which was actually filmed out by you in New Zealand, called The Summit, which I think is based on a New Zealand show.
Yeah.
Um, and it just started. They're showing the first episode like 3 times on network television. They're really pumping it up. So they showed the special preview, and then as we're recording it, tomorrow night is the regular opening, and then Friday night they're showing it again. But there they vote people out like sitting in a circle at camp. Like
Mm.
there's nothing written down, nothing secret. You're voting them out face to face. And it's a totally different vibe because if you see which way the votes are going, you could just raise your hand, at least from the first episode that we've seen.
That is such a good point. Yeah. You can change them. Just go with the group all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. So it's just interesting. All these different shows vote people out, but it's interesting to have the different
Mm.
ways you do it.
Yeah. Wow.
So, anyway, getting back to this show, before dismissing the players, Kareen suggests they should give a thought to who led them down the wrong path, which I've said this before. I don't know that the hosts should be giving advice like this, especially since in this
Mm.
case it's the wrong advice. And it kind of puts Cedric and Kirkland right in the crosshairs. I mean, they put themselves in the
Mm.
crosshairs enough, but you don't need the host of the show saying, "Hey, watch them."
Yeah.
And then we get Jasmine reminding us that she warned Kirkland about this exact scenario.
Yeah. Oh, and she said, I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to get you. Again, I don't know how people can be so aggressive towards other players when you want to have people on side with you. If you say that to someone, look, I'm going to go with you, but if you're wrong, I'm going to come and get you. That's so otherworldly from my experience. Like I would be like, cool. And if that doesn't work out, but what do we do? What do we do together?
Right.
If that doesn't work out, it's sort of you're trying to be on the same team with people. Oh man.
So
Canada, you need to be polite to people all the time, and it's just not happening.
So speaking of not polite, Dylan shows he can't leave a round table without opening his mouth by criticizing Mike for his vote against Michael because it wasn't, quote, logical, which
Oh,
leads leads me to wonder what he's thinking as he watches now, since Mike was one of only two people to get a traitor right.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Yeah. And again, it's hard because we know that Mike is right in the situation and they think they're just going for someone. But for me, that Mike brought up a very good point
Yeah.
that obviously Enoch agreed with as well. And so clearly there's some basis in that. The fact that Mike would then get yelled at for that, I think it's very unfair.
Yeah, and that's you raise a good point. Why isn't he yelling at Enoch?
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Well, yeah,
you're not yelling at the professional, ex-professional footballer.
Yeah, why are you yelling at the, more soft-spoken guy other than the big ex-football player?
Yeah.
Wonder why.
I'll tell you what. I reckon Mike is a super clever dude. He genuinely looks like someone who would be my friend. So
yeah.
So Mike, if you're looking for a friend, I'd love to hang out sometime.
Yeah.
We can talk podcasts.
Yeah. And it's just, for him to go after, for that. Now, I also have to say, Michael, you don't go into the game saying, "Ooh, I want to be a traitor." I mean, I'm sure that his plan was afterwards say, "Oh, I'm so depressed that I wasn't." But I just feel like it's a bad idea to come in and say that. I mean, even if it's true, even if it's 100% true, I think that because as a faithful, production is only going to pick people who say they want to be a traitor. They're not going to pick the people who say I don't, because they want to have a good show. They don't want to force someone unless they're later, recruited into it. So right off the bat, okay, you've eliminated, some of the cast. But the people who come in telling you, I want to be a traitor, and take one look at him, you got to be thinking, oh, production probably knows they have there's a pretty good chance production's seeing what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, totally. There were a lot of people in our season who said that they were, I was 50-50 going in. Like I didn't, I think I could be a good traitor, but now that I'm here, it looks so difficult. I never could have done it. I went in wanting to be, I expected I was going to be a traitor. And I know that seems quite weird from what you see on the show, on my actual vision of the show, but I'd studied up, I had theories, I had plans, I had everything like that. And when I wasn't a traitor, I thought there'd been a mistake. And I thought somehow I must have been touched and I must not felt it. But then I think that meant I spent the rest of the show hastily trying to put together a plan or acting in the moment, which I think is one of the strongest suggestions I can give to anyone, whoever plays this game, play the game as it lies. But there were very few people who were actually like, I really wanted to be a traitor, until after the show when we all talked and everyone was like, yeah, of course we wanted to be the show. Yeah. The show's called The Traitors. Everyone wants to be a traitor. You don't do the show.
It's not called The Faithful. Yeah.
There's a spin-off idea, Faith. We'll call it The Faithful.
There you go. But so anyway, that was just a little bit of a tangent there, which we never do on this podcast, or any podcast that I do. So after they break up into groups, Kevin says he didn't just vote out Rebecca because she might be a traitor, he thought, but also to help break up the women. Like he saw a little alliance forming there. Lauren says she's going to trust Kevin all the way. I didn't really understand this conversation.
I know, right? Isn't it weird saying it to Lauren, who the fact that the group is called The Women, I think it's just taking out of context, he seems like a real douchebag. I'm sure he's lovely, but the fact that he's talking to Lauren, who I don't want to point this out to him because I'm blind and I might be wrong, but Lauren also is a woman?
Yes, yeah.
And is therefore part of that group as well? They may be talking about specific women within this situation, but the fact that you would then sort of be talking about breaking up an alliance as a faithful is a weird thing to do. Again, this early on in the show.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's something you should be thinking. That doesn't necessarily mean it's something you should be saying.
Yeah. Unless you trust that person really well. So that's right. Maybe I'm being a bit out of line here.
I still think 2 days is not enough time. I know that you've got
Yeah,
Kira saying, my good friend Rebecca, and
yeah,
Rebecca saying, I know it's only been a couple days, but I love you all and everything. But
yeah.
2 days is not enough time to trust someone.
I will say, after 2 days, you do love everyone in that house.
Well, you knew half the
You
people in that house when you walked in, I mean, it's so
even even the people, because there is something about just being separated from your family. You have
yeah,
no one else. You form very tight bonds with these people very quickly.
yeah,
And it does seem weird from the outside, not having experience, but yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I can confirm that I love bloody everyone that was in that house with me.
So meanwhile, Dylan is continuing his, going after Mike by saying he knew Michael from before the game because his logic was insane. And Mike throws the insane description back at him and says, just vote me out tomorrow. Whatever. He's had it with Dylan. And frankly, Dylan's being an ass here. Now, it
Yeah,
seems like this may be part of his strategy to make sure the traders want to keep him around. Still being an
I
ass,
think
though.
yeah. I think because he's being an ass to someone who we know is a nice, quiet
Yeah.
man who we
Yes.
sort of connect with is
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of painting Dylan to be a baddie,
Yeah.
a faithful baddie. Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Um,
yeah.
Separately, Aaron, I think if I wrote down the right name instead of like I did at the beginning, says Mike makes no sense to him, and he tells Mike himself that he's either too nice or really smart. And I say, hey, it's possible to be both. Just look at me.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about the show is that everyone on the show is a smart person. They've all got to levels of whatever they do
Hmm.
that you have to be a smart person to go on the show. This is a smart person show, The Traitors.
Right.
And then you get these sort of super smart people that are quiet and maybe a bit bookish is the term. And then so people are immediately like, well, they're obviously a secret genius who's trying to hide this. No, you can just be a nice person.
Yeah. No, no, that's
We
not
love you, Mike. We love you, Mike. We're so sorry you had to be yelled at and hope you're okay, buddy. I hope you stay in the game for ages.
Yes. Um, Cedric says he hopes the traders enjoyed the mess he created, but he's not going to be a distraction anymore. He's telling us this. I personally, I'll believe it when I see it, but at least
Yeah.
he seems to have gotten the message that many people were trying
Yeah.
to send him.
And shout out to him for that as well, because it takes a strong man to say, oh no, wait, I was wrong,
Yeah.
David. You're
Yeah.
wrong.
No, never.
To say, takes a strong man to say they were wrong, and yeah, good on you, Cedric, for doing that.
Yeah.
He's back in my good books.
Yeah.
Dylan,
Like I said,
no.
yeah, I'll believe it when I see it for Cedric. The traders gather in their conclave and all agree it was a difficult roundtable, especially seeing Rebecca crying as she left. Michael brings up how he got a couple votes, and Kira tells him he got too defensive too quickly, adding to us that he's way too obvious and she will not be sticking her neck out for him. Also, they discuss how the faithful were blaming them for the mission failure, but they say, no, the faithful were just stupid.
I think that's harsh to call people stupid. There was also a cutscene of, was it Nita or Kira? It was Nita saying, "What are you, stupid?"
Yes, that
And
was where I
it's-
got. Yeah, exactly.
and it is she said it within the room as well, and just that whole idea of calling people stupid in this game when you're a traitor and you know exactly who everyone is without having to question it at all, and therefore everyone else is stupid, is not right at all. They're trying to put together a puzzle that you have all the pieces for, and they have to guess what those pieces are.
Sounds like a little leftover faithful trauma there.
This is never going to leave me.
Yeah.
It's still part of me.
From my understanding, now I did not watch her on her Big Brother Canada seasons, but from my understanding, that is completely within the realm of her personality.
Okay,
So,
yeah. She's got. I really like these. I really like the traders. I think Michael's not playing well, and the fact and what they do at this. The fact that they have a full blown argument within Traitors Tower on night 2.
yes. So let's okay. We'll get to that here because when they get around to naming names, Netta suggests Jasmine because Aaron would come under suspicion and they need others with some heat on them for after Cedric and Mike are cut. Kira suggests
Logical, like it.
Yeah. Kira suggests Nichelle because she seems very faithful.
Right.
And Michael says Gail because they haven't spoken. So he's worried she's plotting against him. And so he literally has nothing on her. I don't know anything, so she must be plotting against me, which, mind you, is not a bad, in Survivor, that is not a bad assumption. But this is not Survivor. You are not with them 24/7, and you can go talk to them whenever you want. Your opportunities are specifically limited. So
exactly right. Also, you're in a team of 3 as the Traitors. You have the power because there are more than one of you. And the fact that you would not go, especially early on, and solidify this team that you have. Yeah. Oh, man. And Michael talks about it. He does say that he can feel that he says he's 99.9% sure that something weird is going on there. Yeah. And there is, but it's him.
Right. And so it's because Netta says she has a good relationship with Gail. So she doesn't want Gail to be gone. And Kira doesn't want her gone because she helped a lot of the mission. And, you know, Kira even says Gail could be useful if for some reason they need to recruit, which is probably not the best thing to say. And that does. That's
a mistake.
Yeah, that gets Michael's alarm bells ringing there, you know, who's like, hey, do these 2 want to dump me for Gail? What's going on here? So yeah, Kira had been doing so well up to this point, and then said that. But Michael, this is where the fight comes in. He says he's sticking with Gail, and it seems he won't budge. And Kira and Netta seem taken aback, which brings up the interesting question. What happens in a situation like this? Do they vote? Is it 3 people, or do they have to reach a unanimous consensus? I have always thought that they had to reach a unanimous consensus, but there's also never been an argument like this before. I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Without revealing the later stages of our season, I believe that it is a consensus. And the fact that they do these sessions very late at night means that most people just want to go to bed at this stage. And so they're like, fine, whoever. Whereas this is the first time we've kind of seen an argument like this take place. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out. Surely Michael's going to go with democracy and realize that he needs to stay on side with these 2 people on his team.
I think he will, for more than one reason. And one of those reasons is, as we kind of stray towards predictions here, he just looked very angry at breakfast in the preview. Like someone walked in and he looked like someone who had not gotten his way and had been mad all night about it. And he's just sitting there huffing and puffing.
Yeah. I've just realized who he reminds me of. He reminds me of, and I don't know the character's name because I've never seen it, but the dwarves in Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Gimli, is that one of them?
How could you're in New Zealand? How could I thought you were required. It was, you know, often most of it was filmed there.
Yeah, that's right. When people move to New Zealand, they have to. That's their sort of education of it. But when you're from New Zealand, it's just the thing that was filmed here. We don't need to watch the movies to see the beautiful landscape. We just look out the window.
Oh,
so no.
Okay.
We got made to read The Hobbit when I was at high school, and I thought it was so boring that I didn't read it, and I instead wrote an essay on. Was it Ghostbusters? something that I liked and knew and could quote, rather than this boring book. So.
How dare you? How dare you?
I know people love it. I've just never put in the time never put in the 49 hours to watch the movies to catch up. And maybe I will now to give my children the proper education that they should have.
That's right.
So no offense to people who does, but that's who he reminds me of.
And I am, since this is an audio pod, I am wagging my finger at him right now.
Oh, you are? Yeah. It's a hard wag.
Yes. So anyway, what are your thoughts on this second episode?
I love the Canadian franchise. I love the Quebec version as well. They're doing clever things with this season. They've really they're putting in these twists and turns that I love. We've got characters in there that I love. I just, oh man, I'm hooked again. Every time a new season comes around, I'll be like, oh man, I don't know how it's going to compare to other ones, but man, the characters are in there. They've casted it well. There are baddies, there are goodies. People are getting treated unfairly, and that's unfair. That makes me feel for them. Makes it a good show. I'm really loving it. I think it's putting itself together to be another wonderful, wonderful season. So
Yeah.
bring that on. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think, Dylan, we talked
Yeah.
about him. I think he's working very hard to stay off the list of potential names for the traitors to murder. But
Mm.
in doing so, I think he's alienating too many of the faithful, and it's going to come back to bite him
Yeah.
one way or another.
Yeah.
Now, probably not immediately, not next week, probably not the week after, although it could. But if you keep harping on certain people and then you eventually get them voted out and they were faithful, the
Yeah. You
faithful
look
are going to turn on
bad.
you. They're going to turn
Yeah.
on you.
We've seen it so many
Yeah.
times.
So it, I understand wanting to avoid being murdered, but you got to avoid being banished also.
I think there are different ways to do it. Being murdered is so out of your control. It's almost worth not thinking about,
Mhm.
and instead focus on being useful, a team player, just helping
Yeah.
the overall mission of the faithful. Whether you're a traitor or a faithful, you should seem like that kind of person to keep out. If you're a dick and you keep sticking around,
Mhm.
that makes many people go, well, that person must be a traitor then,
Right, right,
or being kept in by the traitors, in which
Yeah.
case let's just get rid of them.
right.
Yeah.
All right, looking ahead to next week, it is hard to make a prediction without knowing how the show handles a stubborn traitor.
Mm.
But presuming there's some sort of vote, or else the women dig their heels in as much as he has and just say, fine, we're not going anywhere. We're not getting rid of Gail. I'm going to predict they vote out Jasmine.
That's exactly who I was thinking as well. Yeah.
Yeah, because they had the most logical reason for
Mm.
that
Yeah.
compared to, good and challenges. And so I think that's who I'm looking at as a likely murder.
I think so too. I think the other reason is we saw quite a bit of Jasmine in episode 2.
Right. Mhm.
We didn't see that much of Gail, to the fact that you didn't even know who she
Right.
was.
Right.
And for us to lose her, someone who was also, a name. She's been on The Amazing Race. It will be weird to vote her out without giving her appropriate fanfare. So Kira suggested Nichelle, and I just think we haven't seen him that much of Nichelle either. So I think it's got to be Jasmine. I think she's had the screen time for us to say thank you for your work. See you later, and we'll get to know Nichelle and Gail a bit more. So yeah, so I completely agree with what you say. Once again, David, you're right.
All right. Yay. It is time to finish the Traitor game. Sam, did you lie to me?
Yes, I did.
Dang it. I was hoping you forgot. I did lie to you as well. But I'll try to guess yours first.
Okay.
So there was only one thing that I could think of. Where you were talking about the amount of time it takes for production to go around and look at the names. And you said, oh, it takes forever. I don't remember exactly your words, but you made it sound like it takes a really long time. And to my mind, it seems like they could just run, look, and then figure it out fairly quickly. Do a little math, figure it out. I could see it going either way. I could see it taking a while, especially from your viewpoint of sitting there. It would seem like longer, but I'm going to say that's a lie. I don't think it takes that long.
David, and I hate to ruin the wonderful message you have written on the wall behind you. David, you are unfortunately wrong. It does
Oh,
take
no.
ages.
Oh
And I
no.
think the reason for it taking ages is that they have to work out the exact spot where to start. So they'll go
Yeah.
through different situations and figure it out. That's my reason. I don't know. I've never been in that room, but that's just what I figured. So unfortunately, no, you are not right. Should I tell you what it was?
Yes, yes.
No one from the season messaged me on Instagram to ask me
Ah!
about the show. No one at all.
I
Sorry,
completely
Michael,
bought that.
that I had
I
to
bought
say
that hook, line, and sinker. I was like, oh, now I feel bad saying anything bad about Michael because he was talking to Sam ahead of
I've got
time. And
I've got no connection to him. I do quite like him. I think he's a wonderful character.
ah,
And if he does want to message me, please do, because
I even held
fascinating man.
back when you asked me. You're like, well, what do you think about him being a paranormal
Yeah,
enthusiast or whatever? I was like holding back. I'm like, oh, I don't want to say anything bad about the guy if he's been
that's
talking to
great. Oh, I
Sam.
didn't realize you were best friends. One person that I did talk to from season one of the show was Mike, Mike the magician. He was
Yes.
delightful to
Oh,
talk
yes.
to on Instagram. I'm such a fan of him.
Breaking news: we will have Mike on later in the season. So
Oh, fantastic. Please give him all my kind regards because
I will.
he was such a lovely person to talk to. He invited me to go stay with him in Canada if I ever go.
Oh, okay. Well, if you ever come to the middle of Illinois in the U.S., you could stay with me. I just don't see
Thank
it being
you.
in your. I just don't see it being in your travel plans. But you
One of
can.
my best friends lives in Chicago, so
Okay. Well, I'm
I'll
three
be
and a
I'll
half
be there.
hours south. So
Well, I'll bring my entire family. We want
okay.
to go
Yes.
see the house from Home Alone. We'll go see Robbie, and we'll come visit you
Okay.
in
You can
Illinois.
see all the Abe Lincoln stuff. You know that.
Yeah, nice.
Okay.
He was like a president or something, right?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Like a president or something. Yes.
I hope he's doing well. I hope he hasn't been to the theater recently.
Uh,
Is that
uh,
too soon?
yeah. It's always too soon.
1865, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Um,
So I've got vast American knowledge of America.
yes. Um,
David, did you lie to me?
I did.
Okay. I've got I've got two ideas.
Okay.
First one, and this is the one I don't think this is. I'm going to go with my other one. But
Mhm.
you mentioned a show called The Summit, which there is a version of it here, and I questioned whether there is an American version of it that's being made. But the more I thought about it, of course, you would make a version of a show that ran for just one season here. So that's my question. We'll keep that aside, and I hope that one is. I hope I've got that one wrong. But I've written down as my guess because you messaged me before the show, and you said that you watched the extended version of this. Never in my life have I heard of there being an extended version of a show like The Traitors that you can watch one version of or the other. That has never occurred to me in my life whatsoever. David, that is my guess that there is no extended version. You've just made that up. Please tell me I'm correct.
You are not correct. I wouldn't lie to you before the show. That would be against the rules.
I thought you were doubling down because you said it before the show, but then you said it on here as well.
Yes.
And so that's what made me think, oh, he's being real clever about this and going about it like that, which
No,
I would
apparently
fully
there's-
expect from him.
Apparently they air an hour-long version, which of course is about 45, 43 minutes without commercials.
Yeah.
And then on streaming, they put the 90-minute version, which is closer to 60 minutes without commercials.
Right.
So did you
Interesting.
catch anything in everything I was saying that you did not
I must
see?
have
Or you must
I must have seen that version as well because everything you said happened in the one I saw as well.
Okay. All right. No,
Dang it.
my lie was very small. Very, very small, but I felt fine about it because you used my own rules against me last time.
Yes, I did.
So I said that I am podcasting on my couch, which is obviously true. You can see that from my
Yes.
bedroom. This is not my bedroom. This is my bedroom.
There's
no way.
There's so much light in your basement. What's
I have all
off
the
to-
lights pointing at me, and then I don't even have the ring light on. If I had the ring light on, it would be even more. But
Haven't we done this podcast before and you were sitting next to an open window?
no, I don't think so.
Oh, well done. Well
Um,
done. You got me.
but yeah, there's no way my wife would let me set everything up to podcast in my bedroom. So can you
That's a
imagine
fair
having
call.
those, a poster and a David, you're right in the bedroom? So yeah,
That's a very good point. Yes, I should have picked up on that. Well done. You got me good, my friend. Love it.
and you got me. So, all right. Well, there we have it. The Traitors Canada Season 2, Episode 2. Anyone who wants to reach out and let me know what you think, I am all over social media and reality TV podcasting. I podcast about U.S. Survivor and U.S. Big Brother on the Rob Has a Podcast Network, with the name of the show being Why Blank Lost. You can find all my various accounts through my link tree at Linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE in the URL there. Or you could find me directly on Twitter and Blue Sky as at David Bloomberg, on Threads as at David Bloomberg TV. I am on the video platforms YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as at David Bloomberg TV, where I've lately been posting 4, sometimes 5 reality TV short videos a day. They're mostly a mix of Big Brother and Survivor, with a few from The Circle and The Anonymous, and of course, The Traitors Canada. Where can people find you other than like watching your season?
I'm at Sam Smith Comedy on Instagram and TikTok, and which I still call Twitter. I am currently, I accidentally signed up to 16 weeks of personal training sessions, so I'm struggling through this by creating some content about going to the gym and trying to look after my stupid body. So please come and check
It's
those out as well. Also, please message me about Traitors stuff because I love it. I love talking about it, and I will try not to give away any spoilers to people who are watching my season, which is on in the UK at the moment,
yes,
which is
yes.
very exciting. And I'm writing a kids book. I've written a book called Miles and Jones. It is an adventure series for kids that is book 1 is out now in New Zealand, and fingers crossed it's going to be out in other places sometimes. So stay tuned for that.
All right.
And hopefully that happens at some point. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Everyone should also check out the accounts for this podcast overall. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as at the Traidar Podcast, on Twitter as at the Traidar Pod, and you can email the Traidar Podcast at gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to help support the costs of publishing this podcast, you can drop Matthew a few bucks, or loonies or whatever they are in Canada, at coffee.com/Matthew Keeley. That's ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. Sam, thank you so much for joining me again. I know you had a very busy schedule with this week. I just kind of like messaged you and said, hey, would you like to do the podcast? You were like, yes. I was like, how about in 2 days? Now you live in the future, so it was like 3 days for you. But I am very glad that you were able to do this.
I'm very happy to drop anything to talk to you about anything at any time, David. Whenever you need me, call me. I'm here to discuss this wonderful show with you whenever you like.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Matthew says he'll be back for episode 3. I believe he will this time. So tune in for him and me to talk for the first time about this season next week. Talk to you all then.